I'm Noah Abrams, and welcome to The Days Between, the show where I talk to my friends, people I admire, and people I want to better understand about success, failure, happiness, and misery, as well as all the other elements that make up a life well lived. Along the way, we'll look at mental, spiritual, and physical health, and when life didn't go as planned, the steps they took to get themselves from A to B and beyond. This week, I'm speaking with Brian Anderson. During his nearly 25-year career as a professional skateboarder, there is very little Brian hasn't accomplished. Within his first 3 years in the industry, he was named Thrasher magazine's Rookie of the Year, Skater of the Year, and won the World Cup of Skateboarding. Accomplishments made all the more impressive, having left his full-time job as a line cook just a few years prior. Known for his aggressive and powerful style, Brian is a skater's skater and a fan favorite, having appeared in dozens of films and advertisements. His passion for getting tricks is undeniable, with a history of slams that defy logic but command respect by those inside and outside of skateboarding. Motivated by a strong work ethic, Brian's willingness to continually push himself was at one time fueled by the anger and frustration at having to keep a deeply personal part of his life secret for fear of how it may be received. After establishing himself as one of the greatest street skaters of all time, Brian made the choice to openly share a long-hidden side of himself with the world, having no way to predict the sea change within skateboarding that would follow. Widely admired and respected by his peers for his accomplishments on his board, Brian's transparency and willingness to completely be himself off of his board may prove to be his lasting legacy. For a sport inclusive of differences and a shared ethos of progression, for many people, myself included, Brian Anderson is the embodiment of what it truly means to call oneself a skater. It is with great pride that I present Brian Anderson on The Days Between. So I'm here in New York City with Brian Anderson. It's good to see you, man.
You too.
It's funny, I identify you so much with San Francisco, just from that hat that you used to wear all the time.
Yeah.
But you are not from San Francisco.
No, I am from Groton, Connecticut.
Were you born and raised?
Yes, I was born in New London at the hospital there, but we lived in Groton.
Any siblings?
Yes, 13 siblings. I have 11 sisters and 2 brothers.
What was that like growing up with 13 siblings?
Well, free babysitting, I guess, for my parents. I am the youngest. I'm number 14. I am now 45 years old, and my mother is 92. Being that I only had 2 brothers, my next brother up from me, he must be about 10 years older than me. It's terrible that I don't know exact dates, but it's also understandable because the family's so big, dates and ages. But it was nice. We had a dead-end street that we grew up on, really blue-collar, and we were lucky to be able to play outside, especially me with my high energy self. But my sisters were great. We would do lots of affordable things like go to the beach and stuff because with all those kids, my parents didn't have a lot of extra money.
I've heard you tell a story about your dad and the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh, yeah. You know, Jehovah's Witnesses would go through a neighborhood and knock on your door. And most people in my neighborhood were Catholic or something close to that. My father would let them in and listen to them for a half hour, 40 minutes, and they would have their publications and such. And yeah, he'd give them a cup of coffee or something and just kind of give them the time of day. My dad was a really kind, creative, loving father, real sweet guy.
What kind of imprint did that have on you?
He did a lot of things without telling me to sort of show me how to walk through life. He would literally hold the door at the drugstore, I remember. I would go with him every Sunday to get the New York Times. He loved the crossword. And yeah, just the way he treated other people around him in the general public. Pretty straightforward respect and, you know, respect other people's space and who they are. And to understand everybody's different. Yeah, he just had a really simple air about him of being polite and also funny and colorful, but calm. But he did have a temper too, which I saw at a young age, and I never crossed that.
How'd you get into skateboarding?
My neighbor had a banana board, and she would let me borrow it and I would go down the dead end street hill, and then eventually I got a wider 10-inch board. And then Police Academy came out, and I saw everybody skateboarding in Police Academy, and I went home from the movie and tried to jump down the 3-stair in front of my house.
What age was this?
Geez, we'd have to look up when that came out, but probably 10. Yeah, I'd say around 10 I got really, really into it.
Were you skateboarding by yourself, or were your siblings skating?
Actually, one of my sisters, Eileen, who is the next one up from me in age, she's 4 years older, she was skating a little bit, and she learned to ollie a 2x4 before me, and stopped after she accomplished that. And then a day or two later, I learned to ollie the 2x4. And yeah, then I had a few neighbors and good friends of mine in my grade school that also loved to skate around age 12.
And then did you skate into high school?
Yes, I did skate into high school, but by sophomore year, well, I still skated a lot in sophomore year. I stopped going to school. I would leave school a lot. I was pretty frustrated, like a lot of people are at that age, and it got really excited about street skateboarding, and there was a local half pipe too, so I got to learn how to skate a ramp as well.
When you say excited in the sense of just enjoying it, or excited as, hey, this may be something I want to pursue professionally?
Definitely didn't think about the professional side of it, but I got excited because I found something that I could go do to take up time when I was growing up and bored often, and being a really creative person with a lot of energy. Skateboarding was great because I could go out in all the hours of daylight and just get all that energy out and be creative. So it was perfect.
Did you have like a part-time job? Were you working at all?
Yes, I started working when I was 14 as a dishwasher, and then at the grocery store at 15. And then I worked at a restaurant dishwashing, moved up to prep cook, the oven, then saute. So I still skated a little during that period, but I leaned more towards saving my money for music and going out with my friends. And I was going to go to culinary school. Towards the end of high school, I went up to, I don't know if it's Montpelier, Vermont. I loved working at the restaurant, long hours. It was really satisfying.
So if you were thinking about going to cooking school, then you were fairly passionate.
Yeah, I guess I was really into it because my friends worked at the restaurant too. And I also had a boss who, as long as you respected his structure, he would let you work a little loose, if you will. He would give you some stretching room because he was such a great boss and so balanced that you didn't want to screw it up. I was lucky to be influenced by him. Felt like a family at that restaurant. The waitresses, everybody had known each other for years. So I really liked it. I felt comfortable.
Was cooking a creative outlet for you in the way that skateboarding was?
Eventually, yeah, when I was allowed to be in charge of creating the soup for the next couple days, my boss would let me go into the walk-in and look at what needed to be used. And since he had shown me so many different soups, I felt comfortable creating my own, and he would approve it.
Did you finish high school?
Yes, I did finish high school. In sophomore year is when I would go to my double period art class, first and second period, and then I would leave and go skateboarding. And I got suspended out of school a lot. And finally, my principal started giving me in-school suspension, which I eventually busted out of. And then my parents and my guidance counselor and I sat down to figure out what we could do to keep me in school. So that was really nice of my parents, and I don't think I was being a total brat to them. I was just really frustrated, really creative, and all my siblings were grown up and gone. So I ended up being by myself actually at my house. And yeah, I wanted to get the hell out of there.
Was the frustration specific, or was it just the general frustration that people go through at that age?
I think the general frustration. Also, I keep saying this, but really creative, really into music. I really just wanted to get out of that small Connecticut town and go to New York City, go to California.
And then after you graduated, what did you do?
After I graduated, 2 of my friends and I had a pact that we were going to see California. So we saved our money, and I think it was after the new year of 94, so maybe January 95, we left for California in my 86 Subaru. We drove out to Eureka. My sister was going to school at Humboldt County, and we got some odd jobs and just wanted to see what the West Coast was like.
How long did you stay for?
We lasted about 2.5 months in Eureka, which was really a strange new world. I had never experienced seeing people on meth growing up in Connecticut. I didn't understand that. It was really creepy, kind of that old logging town that unfortunately succumbed to things like crystal meth. But we saw a lot of beauty in the Humboldt, in the forest and stuff. So for my friends and I had a really good experience. But after borrowing money from my parents and paying them back, after a couple months, we decided we should go home. So we did our best and we paid our folks back.
Were you skating still?
I was not skateboarding. I had a job delivering pizzas, and then I got a job roofing for a couple weeks.
And then you went back to Connecticut?
Yeah, we drove back to Connecticut.
What was that like, being back in Connecticut after having that experience in California?
Well, my friend Donnie Barley had just gotten into the skateboarding industry and became pro. And he said, Brian, you should go back to California and skate a little bit more because I think you have it in you. So I skated in a local contest in Connecticut. I'm pretty sure I got first place, and that was a big push. And all my friends encouraged me and my family.
But you got first place having not been skating for a while.
Yeah, I hadn't really been skating a ton. I guess I had a lot of skill from all those years under my belt. And so they came back to the surface. I guess I skated really good that day, of course.
And at that point, you were thinking about potentially doing this for a living, or was it still just skating to enjoy skating? I mean, was there any goal?
Not yet. I was back at the restaurant to earn money. So I saved a bunch of money and then drove back across with 2 skate friends and went straight to Sacramento, where some of my Connecticut friends were living. And then I just did not have a job, and all I did was skate in Sacramento. And so I had 2 friends in Sacramento who would film me all the time. And then we did a couple tricks that were some of the best tricks I had ever done on film, and we submitted them to Toy Machine. And then they really liked the skateboarding I did, and they flew me to San Diego from Sacramento, and we filmed a few more months. I just slept on couches down there, and then I was in their video, Welcome to Hell. And after the video, we went on tour. And after the end of the tour, they said, you know, how happy they were with the way I skated and, you know, how I got along with everybody on the team on the tour. So that was the beginning.
And that's Ed Templeton's Toy Machine.
Ed Templeton's Toy Machine, yes, with Jamie Thomas, who had started Zero, and that was just T-shirts. And I think he screened a few boards. Yeah, he did. And so it was Jamie Thomas and Ed Templeton driving the van.
And at this point, you were a sponsored amateur, or were you pro?
I was a sponsored amateur.
And then at what point did you become pro?
I went pro, I think, a year later, I'm going to say, give or take.
And just for the people that aren't necessarily familiar with how it works, you're a sponsored amateur, you're given boards by a company.
Yes.
And then when they ask you to go pro, at that point, they're paying you.
In the beginning, when you're an amateur, at least in those years, this was probably 97, they might give you $500 as an amateur. Or no, I guess they didn't, you know, because I feel like when I turned professional, my first checks were for $750 a month. And then if you got pictures in the magazine with stickers on your skateboard, your sponsors would give you a photo incentive money. So as an amateur, you're not making much at all. And then they sort of tell you that they think you're good enough to go pro. And it was flattering. I didn't want to do it at first.
Why didn't you want to do it?
Because there were other guys on my team that were there longer than me, and I didn't want to step on their toes. So I asked them about it, and they just said, "Oh no, you got this, BA," and encouraged me. And so I said, "All right, well, you got you guys' approval."
So in 1998, you turned pro.
I think. Sorry that I don't have all the dates exact, but yeah, around 98.
And then in 1999, Thrasher magazine gives you Skater of the Year.
Yeah, it all went pretty quick.
And you also won the World Cup of Skateboarding.
Yes, it was very surreal winning the World Championships in Münster, Germany.
Well, it's a huge moment for you.
Yeah, I was skating really good. And also, Münster was featured in Transworld and the other skateboard magazines. Transworld Skateboarding was one major magazine when I was growing up, besides Thrasher. So I grew up looking at the results of Münster and my idols, pro influences, and photos of them in the magazines at this contest. Jason Lee, Ed Templeton, Mark Gonzalez, all these people I looked up to, and then I'm there. And I had been in a half a dozen contests before that. I was used to contest environment at that point. Munster was something else. It's a big stadium. Oh my God, it would never happen like that now. It's full of cigarette smoke, and they just go have at it.
Of Skater of the Year, which was given to you by Thrasher magazine.
Yes.
Jake Phelps, the longtime editor, said, quote, "When I first saw him, this barbaric dude that was obviously larger than life, he just walked right into the spotlight from working 70 hours a week as a line cook to being the hottest thing in skateboarding."
Yeah, that quickly happened. In those years when you got Skater of the Year, they really tried to hide it from you to surprise you. I think they still try to leave an element of surprise to the person who was going to get it. But yeah, they told me to work on an interview that year, and I did, and had a bunch of pictures. And the end of the year approached. They broke it to me in maybe November. I don't know. And then I had to go into Thrasher and their photo studio and take a picture for the cover. And, the year before they had given me, which sounds like a regular sport term, Rookie of the Year. But Thrasher wrote me as Rookie of the Year the year before. And so here I am. The next year they give me Skater of the Year. It was unreal.
How common is that, to go from Rookie of the Year 1 year to a year later becoming Skater of the Year?
I guess it could be fairly common, because when you're skating that good, to get something like Rookie of the Year, which I don't even know if they do anymore. But if you're skating that good and you stay on top of your skateboarding and your sponsors, and if you keep all the great energy around you, it's not a big surprise, I guess, the next year if you get Skater of the Year.
What was going on with you personally at this point?
I was living with my friend Brad Staba and my friend Chris Hafner. We were living in San Francisco in a loft space with 3 other roommates. And I remember the night of the party for my Skater of the Year party, we had a limousine that Ed Templeton got for me, or the magazine, combination of them two, drove around, 40s and blunts and such, things you do at that time. And yeah, it was just skateboarding all the time. But that's where I was at. I was living in San Francisco.
Of Ed, in 2016, in a Rolling Stone interview, you said, "I knew that Ed was open-minded, and if you're going to be on that team and in that tour van, you had to be open-minded as well." And I was right. Being with that crew, even at a young age, never felt homophobic.
Definitely not. It's Ed's company, and he had all those photographs of him and his wife, Deanna, with really provocative nude pictures and stuff. So he was very much in that world of art and photography. So if you came into Toy Machine, you had your eyes opened up to that world. When we went to Amsterdam the first time, we're all at a sex show, where this person's peeling a banana and somebody's going on stage and taking a bite while it's popping out of their crotch. Ed was really colorful.
Were you open about your sexuality with your teammates?
No, not at all. Not at all.
And why is that?
It was such a mystery as to how people would respond or react if I were to have told them that I'm gay. At that point, I realized, I'm probably never going to stop thinking about men. I never thought that I was broken or was wrong, but I was still figuring out where I was going to go with all of that. A lot of people say I thought I would never tell anybody in my life ever. So it was just out of the question in my mind. I'm no way. I'm not going to let anybody know that about me, about my thoughts, because I want to be a pro skater, and skateboarding felt really homophobic outside of our tour van, and people just hadn't really told those stories yet. So it was like, no way. No way. I was terrified, man.
So you continue skating for Toy Machine. That team disbands. You had said that you were certainly one of the stronger skaters on the team at that point, but that you didn't want to be the center of attention. And so you left Toy Machine. You went to Girl Skateboards, which is co-owned by Spike Jonze. What was that like leaving Toy Machine?
It was really tough because I knew that I wanted to leave. People actually asked me to ride for Habitat skateboards or Alien while I was on Toy Machine, knowing that I was about to get Skater of the Year. And I said no. Mike Carroll, he kind of told me there was a place for me at Girl. So I said no to that, kept moving forward. And then, yeah, quitting Toy Machine was not fun because Ed was such a big part of my life and Toy Machine was such a big part of my career and how I got to where I was. But yeah, not to be a quitter, as I say, and I didn't feel that I was. And Ed took, a day to talk to a bunch of his friends to process it. It was tough, but I knew the girl was the right place for me, and I knew Ed would be okay, and that was the case. It was the right place to go to girl.
Was there any part of you personally that felt like you were leaving someplace that was safe for you?
No, I guess because here's the other aspect of my thought process being in the closet. I started to achieve so many things, winning contests, the Skater of the Year, other awards too. Transworld gave me Best Style one year for being in one of their videos, lots of things. So I lost a lot of that fear of being found out, so to speak. I was slowly probably becoming less concerned or worried if somebody were to somehow find out. And I was already on 4-Star Clothing, which was under the same roof as Girl Skateboards, so I knew a lot of the guys over there. So to move into Girl Skateboards was very comfortable because we all had already joked and been on tour with half the guys. So I knew we all liked each other a lot. And they were pretty funky themselves, going to strip clubs and being wild and being appropriately inappropriate. And I think soon after getting on Girl Skateboards is when I met the guy who allowed me to turn a corner in my mind about coming out and eventually coming out to my family. So I was on Girl Skateboards and, geez, you know what? No, that's not true. I met this guy in Holland, in Amsterdam. I think I was still on Toy Machine. I went to Europe before my teammates were there. I had a hoodie and a baseball hat, and I said to myself a little bit of, life's too short. I'm going to start going into a couple bars and checking stuff out. And I met a very nice man, very kind man, and we stayed in touch. He came to visit me in San Francisco, and then we started dating. And I would go to Holland. And yeah, at that point, I'm fully on girl when I'm going over to Holland all the time in a relationship with this guy.
Get on girl.
Mm-hmm.
You skate for girl for almost a decade.
Yeah.
You develop a reputation within the industry and within skating as being a very aggressive skater
mm-hmm.
in the sense that, you're big, you're powerful. You had said in a Vice Sports documentary that some of the pent-up aggression and shame caused you to skate harder. And I was wondering if you can expand on that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, some of the aggression and pain that did make me skate harder because I couldn't be myself. I couldn't talk about how I was feeling with these people that I was so close with. And I think that's really tough, to say the least, to be completely yourself, having the greatest of times, great moments, and that to not interact the same way that they're interacting with you. They're telling you about someone they have the hots for, or their wife or girlfriend back home. And there was no other queer people around talking about their relationship with their, partner. So, yeah, I mean, I was pretty angry inside, not being able to do what I want, and date who I wanted to date and go out and experiment. I was probably really angry. So, sometimes when you fall down some stairs and you tumble around, it kind of felt good. I don't know.
Good how?
Maybe that's the Norwegian in me. Like, I mean, I'm 6'3". I'm a broad-shouldered dude. Like, I don't like violence, or I don't even want to play tag football or something, but I like to crash, man. I'm kind of oaf, big body. I don't know. I like to roll around. I like to crash into things. It helped massage some of the pain without hurting other people, is a way of putting it. That fall and rolling on my shoulders and smashed, believe it or not, it felt good. It made you feel alive, made my blood move around. That's probably part of what it was. It was actually physically getting stuff out, like pressure points maybe. Certain brushes with certain things can help relieve pain.
In May of 2013, you leave Girl Skateboards, which had been your home for over a decade.
Yeah.
You decide to start your own company, 3D.
Yeah.
What was that like leaving Girl?
Oh, leaving Girl was really tough. Like everywhere. I mean, when I left Toy Machine, had a phone call with Ed. But when I left Action Footwear, I flew to LA to quit in person. And when I wanted to quit Girl, I flew to LA to quit in person. So I went to Rick Howard's house with his partner, Megan Baltimore. I told him that I wanted to start my own company and that I really enjoyed being on Girl, but I wanted to challenge myself. And I've always kept a sketchbook. I've always helped out with the skateboard graphics with Toy Machine and Girl. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to have my own company and see what that felt like.
What was going on with you emotionally at this point?
I was out to my friends and my family, and I know that so many people in the industry, and then now kids, people that were reading the magazines that weren't in the industry, just everyday skateboarders, were talking about it. People knew that I'm gay. So emotionally, I was doing all right. I was happy in Brooklyn and working on 3D, flying to San Francisco all the time. I came to a point about 6 years ago when I did the Vice piece. I didn't feel like doing 3D anymore because unfortunately the skateboard industry had become saturated with very small companies, and therefore soon after starting 3D there was only so much space on the walls at every skate shop. We tried so hard for a couple of years, and we really did good at trade shows and Zoomies. Brad Staba and I and Hafner and everyone else that helped at the distribution. But I just didn't want to do it. I wanted to focus on my skateboarding, and I also was thinking about eventually doing the Vice piece. So there was a lot of change that I felt I needed to do to clear all this energy out of my body and go to the next phase of life.
The Vice piece that you're referring to, it was a Vice Sports documentary directed by Giovanni Retta.
Mm-hmm.
You told Chris Roberts on the 9 Club there was a part of you that wished you had done something years before. Why is that?
Because after being in Brooklyn for a while, I wasn't sure if I wanted to move away to California. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And knowing that I was going to finish 3D skateboards, initially I just thought I want to do a piece and come out just really simply so people don't have to whisper around me anymore. At the skate parks and stuff, there's an energy you can feel where somebody, maybe wants to ask you or talk to you about it. And I guess that's what I wanted to do, not even realizing that it was going to allow so many young folks to approach me because I had said it to the world. And then they were no longer uncomfortable to come up to me and share their story with me. So again, I wasn't planning that part, but that ended up happening. So when I'm at the skate park now, I'm not sitting there wondering, and everybody looked at me a little different, I think people would look at the ground more before my story. And after my coming out to the world, they'd look at me more in the eye and go, hey, 9 times out of 10, it's good for you, and shaking my hand and giving me hugs. And I think if some people are still homophobic and have a problem, well, then maybe they just don't come over and congratulate me, But
prior to the Vice piece,
yes,
you had come out to your family and you were openly gay in the industry.
Yeah, it was known in the industry. In the beginning, it was known only at Girl, and then some people started to talk more, but the people in the industry respected my privacy so much that it was never going to be written about in Thrasher or any of the major magazines in their gossip column or something.
You mentioned that the industry protected you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that protected is maybe the most appropriate word.
Sure, they were respectful of my privacy.
Do you think it was the environment in skateboarding, or do you think it was because of you? Because it was Brian Anderson?
I'm going to say right away, I think it was because of me. I think a lot of people didn't think that they knew someone in their life that was gay, queer, trans, anything. And I'll go ahead and say I think because I'm easygoing, very kind on tour, and respectful to my teammates, always helping out at contests and being there for my peers. So, I always treated people with respect, and I got along with almost everybody. Unless they were a total jerk, then I just didn't give them the time of day. People really appreciate it, like in any profession, when you don't walk around with diva-like behavior. So, I think a lot of people were taken back, and it changed their mind, maybe rethought their opinions about people's sexuality, maybe made them take a step back and say, wow, we love Brian, and let's be careful and respectful of this for him.
Because you weren't the first openly gay skater.
No, I wasn't the first openly gay. There's a guy, Tim Von Wern, who was kind of chased out of skateboarding. People said, derogatory things all the time. And all the time, always F-bombs left and right. It's strange, even though we don't get changed in locker rooms and we're not around each other. We are sharing hotel rooms. You're so young and just didn't understand that, just because somebody's gay doesn't mean they're checking you out. And that's, I think, the main thing at that time. People were like, what? No, I don't want to share a van with a, gay dude.
Do you think that it is a cultural issue in skateboarding, or do you think it's a business issue? And when I say business issue, I'm referring to the majority of sales within skateboarding are to males between the ages of 10 and 20.
Yes.
And Andrew Reynolds said in a Huck magazine article in 2016, I think it's more of a cultural issue that homosexuality amongst young men is considered a weakness.
Mm-hmm.
So in your experience, do you feel like the lack of openly gay skaters is a cultural issue, or do you think it's a business issue? Or do you think it's some combination of the two?
I think then it was business. Now it's cultural, but there are so many more young people out there truly being themselves with their appearance. There are many more androgynous people out there in skateboarding with a little makeup. There are way more trans skaters. And I think there's just so much more information out there in pop culture that so many young people now are a lot less fazed by it, by people's sexuality, at least in the cities. I don't want to be naive. I know that there's really just still so much work to be done and in different parts of the world and our country. But I think it has changed a lot in the last decade to where, younger kids are not so hung up on it when they have a friend that they find out their friend is trans, gay, whatever.
What was your experience after the documentary came out?
Well, immediately walking out of the theater, some of my peers were there hugging me and telling me how proud of me they were. Daewon Song, I remember, gave me a big hug. Tyshawn Jones was there with Strobeck, and Tyshawn gave me the biggest dap and a hug. Honestly, everybody was just really excited for me, which is really, it's just a great feeling, of course. And I know that, a lot of other queer folks hadn't felt that acceptance, but I do believe what we did, when I say we, it's because Roger and Giovanni worked so hard to edit the Vice piece. What we did started the change. It started to change people's opinions, about queer people. And so after that, I was like, wow, here we go. Let's just see how this wave crashes on the beach, so to speak. And then, let's watch this wave crash. And that's what I kind of did. I sat back and watched the results, and the results were all the time I walked down the street in the months after in New York City, people would just stop me and tell me their story of their gay brother or somebody in their family or themselves. So it was great. It was touching. It was a lot. Actually, I would go home oftentimes shortly after the documentary, and I'd have to just put my phone down, put my keys, wash my hands and face from the subway, and just cry a little bit. People would tell me really personal stories on the street, and I'm a pretty sensitive guy. I'll cry at the drop of a hat if I need to. But I would sit there and listen, look them in the eye and hear their story and just be like, oh, yeah, oh, that's beautiful. Thanks for telling me. And sometimes, I'd walk 2 blocks and somebody would tell me another story like that. So that's some of the ways it happened.
What was the reaction of your sponsors?
Everybody was excited. Oh, of course, Nike was happy. They had been doing something called Be True in all these other sports over there. So, for them, they're like, oh, great. When Pride comes up every year, if there's something going on with Nike and Be True and Pride, we want you to be a part of it. And so, everybody really embraced it.
And you have a signature shoe on Nike.
I did. I no longer have a signature shoe. We took it out of production, but I still have a relationship with Nike. I've been there almost 20 years.
But at that time, you were the first openly gay athlete in the world to have a signature shoe.
Apparently, I am the first openly gay athlete to have a signature shoe. Yes.
Was there any part of you that was uncomfortable having that element of Brian out there in the world? And I only ask because there's so many conversations right now about identity. And, you know, you're a skateboarder, you're an artist, you're a son, you're a brother, you happen to be gay. Was there any part of you that was uncomfortable having that one element of you being projected to the world? Did you feel like any of the other parts of you were going to get lost?
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, shortly after the Vice piece, I remember somebody writing on my Instagram and a comment like, oh, is this a marketing ploy, I wonder, to extend his career? And I thought, wow, do you not understand how hard this was my whole life to know who I truly was inside, but not feel like it was acceptable or okay to share it? And yeah, it puts you under a different magnifying glass that's very extreme. I actually felt really self-conscious about riding for Anti-Hero Skateboards, this sort of punk rock company, the skateboard company, which the name Anti-Hero kind of, you know, when it was created, I think back in, I don't know, 92 or something, I was still in high school. It's kind of like, hey, we're Anti-Hero. Don't look at us over here. We'll just be over here in the corner kind of thing. A buddy of mine once put it that way about them. So it was like, yeah, look, crazy anti-hero, put the gay guy on, you know. I felt like I actually did not want to flaunt my anti-hero t-shirts, you know, like, yeah. I didn't want people to think with this story of coming out that I was no longer going to push myself on my skateboard and that I was going to relax on my, what do you call it? Your
Laurels?
Yeah, relax on my laurels and my achievements and just like, oh yeah, that's right. Don't you remember I did all that cool stuff? I still very much wanted to be a skateboarder producing new tricks and video parts and photographs. But I did kind of have to go into a book tour, if you will, with different queer publications and such, which I wanted to do. So yeah, it was strange that people are going to look at me for guidance and to represent LGBTQ plus culture community. But I was up for that challenge. And also, you know, I'm always me. And so I knew I was going to be sincere. I knew I was going to be a lot more free. So anytime I would get anxiety, I would be able to counteract that with a pep talk internally. Like, no, this is the right thing to do. You're helping people. You're helping yourself. You're helping your sanity. And life's too short, man. You know, so there's a lot of pressure, a lot of weird twists and turns, and yeah, definitely tears. But that's really heavy, man, when people start telling you that you actually saved their life. People have told me that a half a dozen times at least. And that's strange to say because I try to be sort of humble, but it's true. I mean, to have somebody tell you that you prevented their suicide, that's very heavy.
It has been my experience in my own life, having grown up skateboarding and identifying myself as a skater and seeing how many positive things have come into my life from skateboarding, from art to photography to music to even just how creatively I look at the world. Being a skater is a huge part of my identity. And I have found that anyone that I meet that also identifies themselves as a skater, you know, whether they're a musician professionally or a painter or anything, that core identity of being a skater is just something that doesn't go away. Obviously, being gay is a part of the fabric of Brian and is a very strong culture in and of itself. You said in the Vice piece, I consider myself a skateboarder first and gay second.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering if you can expand on that a little bit.
Sure. When I said I consider myself a skateboarder first and gay second, I didn't say it to win anyone over or make anybody smile or fold their arms and say like, "Oh, that's what I wanted to hear." But I feel like that was a general reaction. People went, "Yeah." And I don't think, maybe it was subconscious, but I was just trying to tell people so often, I think in my mind, whether I said it out loud or it was just a thought in my mind, like, I'm still me, I'm still that skater that you saw over the years. Because I think I was trying to help people come down from their misconceptions, their perception of somebody who's gay. I mean, there were people that didn't know I was gay, and I'm the skateboarder. I actually didn't learn that much, and I'm laughing a little, but I didn't learn everything about all the struggles and all of the time and energy and protests and AIDS and all this stuff that everybody had to go through. I have a lot left to learn. I mean, yeah, maybe skateboarder first because that's my life. That's what I want to do. That's what I do when I go out, and it makes me feel fulfilled, is crashing, slamming, skating.
Tell me about your work with Athlete Ally and Born This Way Foundation and the Trevor Project.
Those were all really quick things, honestly. Born This Way, I had a meeting with them. I did a small interview. I think that they shared online, and this was in the beginning, so pardon me, like a lot of that has gotten a little gray. The Trevor Project, I remember seeing Tim Dunn speak in Brooklyn at an event. It was to raise money and awareness about Trevor Project. So I've only had a few interactions with these people, Athlete Ally, Trevor Project, and Born This Way. And it's tough to continue and commit to more and more projects with a lot of people, because I am still a pro skateboarder and I really want to be out in the streets and riding my skateboard to get video footage and photographs. And that takes so many hours out of your life. And it's important to me. But I think now that I have shown the skateboard world, I've been skating so much in the last 2 years. It's like I took a little hiatus after the Vice piece to do some queer press, let's say, but still skateboarding the whole time. And then I felt like, great, this was cool. I got to meet some very interesting people and contribute my story to help others. And now I want to get back to the skateboarding. And now I want to be in my art studio more and making paintings, because that's going to be a huge part of my life when I'm no longer rolling on my skateboard as a profession.
Tell me about your art.
I like to paint. I've always had a sketchbook on tour. I often had sketchbooks in high school, writing ideas. I grew up always altering my clothes, dyeing my hair, and stuff like that. But in high school, I liked to paint. I learned to stretch canvases. I had a couple of really great art teachers. And I've always just doodled, sketched, drawn a lot of ideas for apparel design. But last year, I realized that I do have a skill as a painter. I joke around that I'm a glorified sign painter, but my dad had incredible handwriting. My grandfather, too, great all caps, good, really good cursive. And my father was also a great woodworker. My grandfather, as well, his father. My mother's mother was a wonderful portrait artist. There's a lot of creativity floating around in me from my father, my grandfather, my grandmother. And so last year I started painting more. I have a friend who worked at MoMA. He came to my house and looked at my paintings, and he said, "Brian, you're a painter. You really pay attention to your brushstrokes. I can see it." So because I kept a sketchbook all the years on tour, I never slowed down. I never stopped touring. I said yes to every tour, and I never got to paint, really, only a few times. So last winter, I really tried to seal myself off from the world here and there throughout the weeks, and I started painting. It's interesting because I battled alcoholism my whole life. I would just want to throw this in while I'm on this train of thought. I'm really lucky that since I don't have alcohol in my life, I don't have the fear that it's going to take away from my creativity. And painting is one of the few things I can do and actually slow down. I'm a really good reader. I can read very well, but it's so hard to turn off all the static in my mind. But painting is something that where I can turn off a lot of the static in my mind and really get into it.
2016, the Vice piece comes out. What's changed for you, for Brian?
I got married.
Tell me about that.
Well, my husband and I, shortly after we met, we would talk about marriage because we were so in love so quickly. I think that comes from so many other relationships before ours. And so you kind of know what you want out of life, I think, because you're fortunate enough to have enough experience of having dated other guys and been in other relationships. When our last president was in office, we said we should just get married because we don't know what's going to happen with the world and, hospital visitation rights and stuff like that.
Well, tell me about the hospital visitation rights.
Well, you hear people have these horror stories that, even though they've been in a relationship for X amount of years, that if one of them is sick, then they can't go visit their partner in the hospital because it's not immediate family, even though we had only been together for 6 months, a year. Yeah, I just thought, well, we already talked about it. I'm 45. He's 54, Andrew, my husband. But we're like, yeah, let's do this. So, we're spouses and therefore we're recognized on paper in that regard. It just felt like a safe thing to do because, again, with the last administration, we didn't know what was going to happen. What has changed for me since 2016? Again, I rode the wave of a lot of queer publications and things, and now I've gotten back into more going out street skateboarding with my friends in New York and New Jersey, and it feels good because that story is a little bit behind me. Everybody knows that, understands me, knows a little bit more about who I am, and I feel like that just sits there, and that's its own story, and now I can continue on my skateboard and painting and writing and thinking about what the next 5 years are going to be like.
Where are you emotionally right now?
Emotionally, I feel great because, as I mentioned, I battled with alcohol my whole adult life. In a couple of days, it'll be 6 months for me that I haven't had a drink or tobacco. So emotionally, I feel really good. I mean, besides being really sensitive and empathetic towards the world around me, less fortunate people living in New York City, seeing homeless and schizophrenic folks, it's tough. But having taken alcohol out of my diet, it had become an addiction. It's great that I don't have to worry about tending to that anymore because that's what it had become. I had to tend to what I call my levels. I try to balance with exercise and skateboarding and writing a lot and talking to friends and also talking to myself, literally sometimes out loud. I take a lot of baths and I listen to a lot of music. I listen to NPR and I don't get trapped in Instagram. so I feel all right.
How do you define success?
Balancing healthy living, balancing healthy eating, exercising your body and mind, and doing your best to contribute to society while taking care of yourself, your friends, and your family. I guess that's success, knowing that you should be considerate of those around you, but also yourself.
Are you successful on your terms?
I guess so. Yeah. I don't think I have everything right, but I'm very aware. Yeah. I think awareness equals success, to put it simply.
How do you define failure?
I define failure by being lazy. Maybe there's something okay about being lazy, but failure, that's a great question. I would define it by not pushing yourself enough. But, sometimes you can't physically. But I guess if you communicate enough and try your hardest to have conversations about what's best for you, you're doing good. And if you don't try to be real with yourself, then you're kind of failing a little bit. But that's not easy.
Can you think of a professional or personal failure that at the time felt completely overwhelming, but ultimately set you up for success?
It's tough to call 3D skateboards a failure because we tried really hard, but I'm glad we tried. And it led to me riding for anti-hero skateboards, which is where I feel I always belonged. I'm not just saying that to plug my sponsors or present or past, but I think little things every day, little failures can end up being, something that leads to success. It could be something so simple as to just missing your subway train, and then by failing to be there on time, you encountered something really magical on the street on the way there, and then you took a few right turns and you ended up punctual or on time for an appointment. I don't know.
What would you say to 18-year-old Brian?
Just keep drawing and skateboarding and, visiting your family the way you do and surrounding yourself with good people.
How would you describe what you do for a living?
Being your own golf caddy. I wear that as a badge of honor. Being 6'3" and 190 pounds, if I make a false move with my feet, legs, and body, I can break a skateboard in a matter of minutes on accident. So I have to have a lot of backup skateboards ready, especially when I go on tour, because I ride a bigger board because of my body size, my shape, and weight. So your job is to go out and try and skateboard in a way that is satisfying, and you go out and you try to do a trick better than the last one you did, or challenge yourself. And also you have to be able to interact with kids and know how to talk to them when they don't know where you've just come from and where you're going. I say that because we used to tour a lot more in the beginning of my professional career. And, in skateboarding, there's not really a lot of security. You're around all these young kids in a parking lot, and they always want your hat, your skateboard. You get these things for free, they tell you. And you have to know how to talk with them, So, your job is to go out and document your skateboarding and get photographs and video footage to put out there in the world. And then also, keep a balance and try not to go too far in your head and be on time, but still have fun, laugh things off, and, treat flight attendants and concierge people with respect, man. They've been through a lot.
Brian Anderson, thank you for speaking with me.
Of course, you're welcome. Thank you for speaking with me, Noah.
The Days Between is a production of Noah Abrams Studio. Story editing by Andrew Henry. Mixing and mastering by Greg Henkin. Website and design by John Fisher. Theme music is by Evo. The Days Between can be found online at www.thedaysbetweenpodcast.com and on Instagram at The Days Between Podcast. My name is Noah Abrams. Thanks for listening.